Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mr. Errett, and today we're going to be looking at a couple of amps. One of them is very popular, very highly recommended, and that is the Drop THX 789. If you've done any research into the audiophile headphone community, you're going to see this amp talked about and recommended often. The other amp that I've got, and I should say, that's based on THX technology, which is, well known to be super clean, very low distortion, things like that. The other amp that I'm looking at is a little bit different, but I had a chance to pick it up, and it's just a massive beast of an amp. But this is the Odyssey Deckard, and this is actually a DAC amp. We're really going to be focused mainly on the amp portion of this today, but it does have a reasonably good DAC in it as well, just so you know. But we're going to be focused on just doing kind of an amp comparison. I guess if you really want to think about what this video is, it's probably really more of a review of the 789 than of the Deckard, but I just wanted to have something to compare it to because I think it brings a lot of contrast to the table. I wanted to have an amp to compare to because I think the Deckard's a good choice because it's a Class A amplifier, which I think is a good contrast to the THX based 789. So let's take a real quick look at the units, what you get with them, and just kind of like inputs, outputs, things like that, just so we kind of have a starting point for that, and then we'll get more into sound. So as far as like what you're getting, if you leave out the DAC portion of the Deckard, what you're getting with the amps is actually quite similar. So if we look at the THX 789, I'm just going to call it the 789 because it's a mouthful to say all that. Let's look at the front panel here. So you've got power, balanced, quarter inch, and single-ended. You've got a gain knob where you can select 3 different gains, so 1, 2, and 3. You could think of this as like high, like low, medium, high. Obviously, you've got the volume knob, pretty decent volume pot there, feels really nice and smooth, good amount of resistance, and then you've got an input button. If we flip it around and look at the back, you've got single-ended input, you've got single-ended pass-through, you got balanced input, and then you've got your power, and you've got this little switch over here that you can turn it on so it automatically turns off, or if you do bypass, then it'll just stay on the entire time and won't shut off. So I guess that's a cool option if you want to implement it. So on the front then, back to the input selector, right? When you're pushing this, you are selecting either the single-ended or the balanced. So with the power cord there, let's grab the power cord real quick. You can see what that's like. So basically, you've got one of these power cords that plugs into the wall. You get a little stretch of cable, about 4 or 5 feet there. You've got the power brick in the middle, and then you've got the actual cord, that goes over to the amplifier, which is again about 5 feet long or so. So that's the power cord that comes with the 789. I think you got enough cord on both ends, which I appreciate because you can kind of get it situated any way you need to get situated. And of course, I really like when amps have just like kind of like a regular size plug going into an outlet, because then you're not blocking multiple outlets and things like that by plugging in a big wall wart. So if we look at the Deckard, it's much heavier, by the way. Just this thing is like solid aluminum, so it's got some major heft to it. On the front, it's much simpler because you've only got a quarter inch output. That's all you get. You do have the option to switch inputs from the built-in USB DAC or to RCA input, and then again you've got a gain selector switch here, and it goes mid, low, high. You've got a very large, very nice volume pot on this. I really like the volume knob, so as far as knob fills go, I'd give it to the Deckard personally. Not that the THX is bad. We flip this thing around to the back, and you can see again it's pretty simple setup. You got the USB in, You got your RCA inputs, RCA outputs, and then you can see the power cable insert here, and then the power switch on the back, shit style. So its power cord just is like kind of the standard computer cord. This is the one I've been using with it. It's about, I don't know, 6 feet long or so. But this is just your standard, you know, cord that goes into like the back of a computer or something like that. There's nothing special about it that I can tell. Okay, so that's kind of like the overview of just inputs, outputs, you know, what all these amps have. Again, of course, the Odyssey has a built-in DAC, which the THX does not. Both amps, I would say, have pretty good build quality. Certainly, though, the Deckard has the upper hand in just materials and feel and things like that. I know this amp was like designed in conjunction with BMW, and I don't know why that was necessary, but anyway, you know, it's just a unique looking thing. It's a big beast. It's an impressive piece of kit to look at. The 789, you know, is also rather large. It doesn't feel quite as premium, but still feels well made, and it follows that same drop form function. So things like the Liquid Carbon X, the CTH, the Arist R2R, the THX 1 amp, like they all have this same footprint. So if you want to do some sort of a stack with that regard, you know, you can do that with the 789. But what we're really here to talk about, of course, is the sound. Oh, you know what? We should talk specs as far as power output here first, and then we will talk about sound. So let me look those numbers up here just super fast. That way I don't miss something in that regard. Okay, so power output wise, the 789 is quite a bit more powerful than the Deckard. So the 789 through balance, let's talk balance first, is 6 watts into 16 and 32 ohms, okay? And then we've got, let me keep looking over here as far as specs go, 800 milliwatts into 300 ohms and 400 milliwatts into 600 ohms. If you look at the single-ended, it's, I mean, basically just half those numbers. So 3 watts into 16, 1.8 watts into 32, and then 200 milliwatts into 300 ohms, and 100 milliwatts into 600 ohms. It's a lot of numbers to spit out. Okay, the Deckard, again, not nearly as powerful and much simpler because it's only single-ended. So it is less than a watt at 33 ohms. So their quoted specs are 795 milliwatts at 33 ohms, 465 milliwatts at 300 ohms, and then 235 milliwatts at 600 ohms. So at the lower ohm loads, like 32, 33 ohm, the 789 is much, much more powerful. But if you look at those numbers for 300 ohms and 600 ohms, it actually starts to level out to where they're pretty comparable with those higher impedance headphones. What I would say about this is I've had zero issue driving anything off either of these amplifiers. So everything from sensitive IEMs did fine when these were on the low gain settings, to I've run like several different LCD models and Sennheiser models and Bayer dynamic models, and just all sorts of stuff. I've driven just about everything on them. I haven't found any issues or any need for any more power when using either amplifier. Okay, so let's talk sound, and this is where it gets interesting for me. So I had a chance a while back to try a whole bunch of solid state amplifiers. I had neither of these amplifiers at the time. I did have some fairly linear amplifiers. For instance, I had the Ship Magnus, and I had the SMSL SP200, which also uses THX technology. So out of all those, I'll link that video up here and you can go check that out. The Magnus I thought was the best out of that bunch. But then I had an opportunity to pick up these amps, and one of the big questions that I had was whether or not the 789 would sound the same as the SP200. So with that previous kind of solid state shootout, I did find that even among really linear amplifiers, such as the Magnus versus the SP200, I could hear audible differences between those amplifiers, even though, you know, their distortions are both like negligible. So my next question was then, and I like the Magnus better than the THX implementation of the SP200. So then my question was, do all THX amps sound the same? And that's really why I picked up the 789, is just because I wanted to kind of test that out for myself. Now obviously I don't have another THX amp sitting next to me to AB with this, but from my memory, which we all know can be flawed, but from my memory, I do think that THX amps can sound different, because I found the SP200, like, I really did not like that amplifier that much. I thought it was really sharp and could be quite harsh at times, and it wasn't very forgiving. The 789, I feel, is in that same realm, but is overall a better implementation of that technology. So it's still super clean, super sharp, still very clear, has a lot of clarity to it, but it's smoother than the SP200 was, to the point where I feel like I could live with the 789 and be pretty happy with it as a daily driver amplifier. I did not feel that way about the SP200. Switch over to the Deckard, and you're seeing kind of probably what a lot of you, if you've done any other research, have heard about Class A amplifiers. You're getting a sweeter, a fuller sound, and it's just maybe a bit more natural sounding, a bit more analog sounding, if we want to say that, and versus the 789's more technical, information focused, I guess is the way I'd put it, presentation. So I'm not going to try to like belabor this point too terribly much, but I do just want to kind of share with you just some of the like adjectives that were running through my head on my notes here as I was you know, A-Bing these two amplifiers and thinking about them. Really, the 789, I feel like it is a technical beast, right? And I feel like its sole goal is to very clearly and precisely present you the information of the track. Now that can still be very enjoyable to listen to, but I would say it's very much a detail information focused experience. I thought it had a pretty wide sound stage, but there wasn't a ton of depth in it. And I did find that there was a lot of detail there. Switch over to the Deckard, and I feel like you're retaining that same amount of detail, but it's just a much easier going presentation. Whereas I feel like the 789 is really trying hard to get you all that clarity. Whereas the Deckard, I feel like it's just a bit more laid back, a bit more chill, a little bit sweeter, a little bit fuller, still very, very detailed, but this one comes out to me a little more natural. I thought it's not as wide as the 789, but there's a bit more depth to the presentation of the soundstage. And for me, that made things less separated, although things were still clearly separated and I could pick out, you know, different instruments and all the different pieces of the track, but they were just presented in a much more natural way that made it more enjoyable and more believable for me personally. Again, the 789 is doing a wonderful job of presenting information, but it just doesn't tie it all together in that cohesive, just really natural experience where I'm not like thinking about it that much. You know, on the 789, when I'm listening to it, I'm thinking about it. Oh, I hear that piece, I hear that piece, I hear that piece. With the Deckard, it's more just sit back and just kind of enjoy, appreciate all those details, not focus on anything in particular too critically. You're just enjoying listening to music. And for me, that's really what I'm trying to go for with the sound signatures that I'm kind of into right now, is I want it to be detailed, but at the same time, I just want to be able to access that stuff if I want to. Otherwise, I just want to kick back and kind of enjoy my music. And really, I think that kind of tells you what the difference is between these two amplifiers. I'd recommend them both, honestly, depending on what you're trying to go for. The Deckard's a little bit harder to get your hands on. Like it's there, I don't see them for sale that often, and you can't buy them new anymore. It was originally like a $700-800 piece of equipment. I bought mine for about $225, and that's what I paid for the 789. No, correct that. I actually got a really good deal on the 789. I think I only paid 150 bucks on it. They are ubiquitous enough now that if you're not in a hurry, you can very easily get one for $200 or under. And at that price point, I think you're doing pretty good as far as the amp goes. Again, I don't have the Magnus on hand still to tell you whether you should go at 200 bucks for the 789 or the Magnus. I'd say pick one. They're going to be similar. Pick one and be happy with it. If you're going for that very linear, very clean, very information-focused sound. Whereas if you want something more like the Deckard, something Class A, you know, a good option that you could look at in the $200 price range would be the Asgard 3. I haven't done a review of that. I did own that amp for quite a while, though, and really enjoyed it. But that would be another option that I might throw out there for you if you're looking for a Class A style amplifier that's maybe a little bit sweeter and you know, not as information focused as the THX stuff. I think that's going to do it. If you've got questions about either of these amplifiers that I didn't answer, you know, definitely drop those in the comments below. I really try to respond to all those. If you have a different opinion from mine, feel free to drop that in the comments below, or say if your experience is similar. Really, I want people to kind of get the whole picture here and be able to make an informed buying decision. So whatever you want to contribute, I would very much appreciate that. As always, you know, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching and putting the time in. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed this content, and consider giving a like. I will have a lot more headphone content coming in the near future. Until next time, take it easy. Thank you.